Yeah, as long as we don't move too much.
It's on? All right, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't. It's precarious.
Yeah.
Oops.
Nobody moves.
It's a fragile message. So I was telling my friends here, today is my 30th anniversary of recovery. 30 years ago I got the gift of sobriety. Who would have thunk, you know, it's mind-boggling, to tell you the truth. At this time, so much time has gone by. But to me, my experience or the event that brought about sobriety in my life was a huge demonstration. And a lot of times, the mind gets big mind gets an impression, and it may not express it for years, you know, or it can be hidden by too much agitation out here. But sometimes things happen, and then they show the results years later. But in this case, I ended up in a trailer park, you know, near the hang gliding airport at Calistoga, town about 2 hours north of here. I had gone out March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, not like I hadn't gone out March 16th, 15th, 14th, 13th, but you know, I remembered it. I lost my friend's car on the 18th. 19th and 20th were a blur. I don't know what actually happened. And I woke up, I came to in Calistoga in a trailer with a guy I didn't know, not horizontally, thank God, you know, but vertically, sitting and looking at him, and we were drinking a bottle of vodka, Royal Cape vodka, very cheap vodka. And you know, all I was attempting to do, because I had spent 2 years and 10 months before that, I had spent 2 years in a program and had gotten separated from active use for 2 years. Hadn't used or drank or anything. And in that program, they told me that that period, though rather long, of my addictive life was over, and I was going to be clear sailing from then on. I was hoping they were right, but I had a strong suspicion maybe they weren't. But I went through the program. I graduated with flying colors, really. I went to college, I did all this stuff. But I was totally ill-prepared for life on life's terms. So I got out, and I didn't really know what to do with myself after I got out of work. I had a job, and then I was going to go to bed like 7 hours later, and I had no one telling me what to do. And that provoked an agitation, and that agitation is usually, you want to open that? We'll start it over again. That was a test. It was only a test.
I'm still going.
It's still going?
Yeah, it's got my face in it now.
You don't mind if I share this? It's cool, because you know, a lot of people who go to recovery, people tell them something's really wrong, and then they look at their life with rationality and stuff. None of that happened with me. I hit bottoms, what they call a bottom, and a bottom is basically the norm unless something happens, and let's say you start to recover. You know, every day's a bottom, basically, but you know, you call it the bottom because you moved away from it, basically. That one gets titled the bottom, but it was just a regular day at the office for me. But I had given up all freaking hope, because after 2 years, you know, went to college, felt much better about myself. To go down that tube again so quickly was demoralizing. We have a statement in recovery, pitiable, what is that? Incomprehensible demoralization, which is a very fitting description. And so basically I was just trying to stay, and I was in this real, a situation you get into for some of us near the end of the drinking, which is you have a desire to get loaded, but you have no money, yeah? So you have to convince others to do what you want. And my batting average in that success level was going down. You know, I wasn't able to convince people to do what I wanted, yeah? So I was very, very angry, incredibly angry. And so I was just sitting there, just trying to stay loaded until I could figure out how to get high, you know, get some money somehow. But then something occurred, like a download. That's why I like the term download. Because something entered, whatever this is. You know, I thought it was defined by the body, but obviously it isn't. And something bypassed my head. My head was like the catcher's mitt that caught everything, basically, in life, you know. And then as soon as it caught the ball, it defined the game. It happens very quickly, being the dreaming of the dreaming, yeah. As soon as the ball hits the mitt, the game's on, yeah. And so the mental state basically was taking in all the messages and diverting it from going to, let's say, the innermost, and then collating it the way it liked, and then, you know, presenting it, and it sounded, it was basically a lot of false evidence appearing real, like we say in recovery. The acronym for fear, one of them is false evidence appearing real. A lot of false evidence was appearing real in my experience, yeah? So, this thing came in, I don't know, it wasn't a thing. It was like almost like something that where you're not looking, opened, and something came in. And it bypassed my head, and AA tries to point it out by calling it the innermost, you know, some aspect of you, maybe a very unconscious aspect that's available. And the message was received there. And it was like a CNN news flash, not much of a story, like a headline, and the headline was "Unfucked," which was true. And it's been true for quite a while. But I was unbeknownst to me deeply, because my whole mental posture was like Arnie Schwarzenegger's arms holding out life on life's terms. I had a whole story about what was going on. It was not even close to what was happening. That all got it didn't have to get dismantled, it went under and it just hit me. And it was very clear, super clear, you know, like a news flash, just headline, "Unfucked." And then new thoughts came in that I hadn't entertained like 3 minutes before, which was, and changed my whole life, you know. I left that place, got to a phone booth, called this program I had been in. They wouldn't accept me back. And then then I called a woman who I asked to help. She decided to help me, and she was the one that brought me to my first AA meeting, which I wasn't looking for. I didn't even know really about it at all. But she gave me a deal. "Do you want a place to stay tonight?" And I did. And she said, "You got to go to an AA meeting." So I figured, all right, okay, we can do that for an hour. But in that meeting, the hope, you know, the seed was planted. But see, in this drama here of this world, it's like it's a movie or a dreaming. So the seed was planted. That seed needed to be watered and needed to be potted and needed to be protected. And that's what AA did. Yeah, AA allowed the expression of the sobriety that was downloaded, and it's allowed it for 30 years, which is pretty awesome. So my head doesn't really take what's happening, no, in stone. Everything that's happening implies something else to my mind, the mind, big mind, yeah. And so what it implied was captured by recovery in AA. It says, suddenly you'll realize, or will realize, that God, or whatever, a power greater than self, can do for you and has done for you what you can't do for yourself. And that's basically what I've experienced most of the rest of the time, the last 30 years. That you can be directed as this by another modality, not based on thought, you know, not based on memory, not based on a narration, not based on rationalization, not based on a lot of what I lived my life based on. Yeah, a new way of life, a new direction. And then that direction in recovery isn't, because I can change how I feel in a second, right now. You know what I mean? I can change how I feel. But what AA does, it takes the change and directs it, and that's growth. Yeah? So now that sort of lost plan gets directed, it's changing, it gets directed to the sunlight of the Spirit. Yeah? So that which was a fucking down and out junkie suddenly can be of help to other people. you know? And that which you would have said had absolutely no value and you would have loved to throw away suddenly becomes incredibly valuable when put to use by an aspect of mind not rooted in self-centeredness, yeah? So even all of the narration of self-centeredness, you haven't fucking done anything worthwhile in years, yeah? And you could just, you know, you could nail the coffin from the inside with that kind of narration, yeah? You could, yeah? That information gets turned into an incredible asset and value. Why would you just take that at, you know, face value? What is it implying? What is it implying? That there's a power greater than you that can do for you what you can't do for yourself. It implies a huge amount. If you just stop collaring the mind, big M mind, with a historical fucking false evidence of you being this, and this is that, and this, therefore that, and I had done this, therefore that's gonna, all like that. Why not? It hasn't worked well. Why would you be so beholden to it? The reason why we're beholden to the system is we're identified as the system. That's the dilemma. For me, it happened around, really clearly, as an event out here around 8 or 9 years sobriety, where there's a statement in the book, and I'm going to do recovery tonight because it's the 30th anniversary, so I'm going to honor recovery by being recovered, yes, from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Not a hopeless state of mind and body, seemingly hopeless state of mind. In other words, it can appear to you that it's hopeless, or it can appear to you not to be hopeless. You're still the axis of fucking everything. You're the dreaming of the dreaming. You're not something that's being put upon or imposed upon. That's all narrative. That's dreaming. Yeah, you're behind everything and in front of everything and around everything and under everything. So there was a statement in a chapter called How It Works, which is a very apt chapter because it describes how it works, the program, the 12 steps. And it says, being convinced, and this is a big statement in recovery, they use it all the time, which is a present tense verb. Doesn't mean I was convinced or I hope I'm going to be convinced. It's being convinced. You're in it. You're convinced. Yeah, of what? Well, you're convinced that self. And this is the trip, because a lot of people think self implies ego. I'm not into that at all. Because you'll hear people talk about ego as if I have an ego or I've lost an ego. That feeling of being the haver or the loser ego, that's selfing to me. That sense of ownership or causation to things is the selfing. Yeah? There's no self, but there's selfing. Yeah? And if you go into the mental states, whatever they may be, or someone wanted me to use the term brain states, so let's say memory, perception, thoughts, yeah? If your attention, not yours, if the attention and interest, which is what you're living as, really, goes into those processes, it always finds them in the act of being identified as a self. That's selfing. Selfing never culminates to being a self, but it will appear to you that you are a self, because it's based on I was a self, because I have tons of memories of me as this freaking body, and I did that, and I didn't do that. And then you have tons of worries about you as a self in the future, so I will be a self, therefore I am a self. That's how it gets around to it. Something that isn't so has to appear to be so. To what so? Yeah. It doesn't have its own so-ness. It's contrived. It's given that so-ness by what so. Where what so? Believing something that isn't so. We're breathing life into the narration. Yeah. Nothing else could. What illusion could fool reality? None, unless reality was in cahoots with the illusion. That's it. That's what's happening. We're dreaming. Yeah. Makes it go a whole lot easier, and a lot of more acceptance will flood your life when you see that, you know, if you follow every discretion and everything like that, it leads right back to you. Not as this, but as what you are. And then, you know, of course, the action figure gets worked up over a lot of fucking things, but you have to realize in timelessness, 90 years of time is fucking zippo. It's nothing. Nothing even ever happened. Yeah? Only when we're in it does it seem to be real. You gotta see, what does that imply? You have to be the constant ingredient for everything to appear real or unreal. It's always you there. That's what it says. False evidence appears real. It has to appear real to what's real. How else is it going to appear real? It has to appear real to what's real. You think false evidence just fucking appears real out of nowhere? There's an audience. We're the audience, we're the director, we're the stars, we're the critic, we're all of that. And then in a sense, we're none of it, yeah? So, being convinced that self, this feeling of being the doer or the owner or the haver or the loser or this or that, yes, or a body constraint, all the suffering that you're in now would not be available without the body identification. The body identification is the primary anchor that fuels the reality of this fucking story to us, yeah? So here we are, being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, is what has defeated us. You know? All right, I saw self as not me. And I think everyone can see it quite easily. If you just read the sentence, being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, has defeated us, it's separated already. There's self and then there's us. If it was you that defeated you, it would have been being convinced that Mary, Jim, Steve, Bill, millions of names, manifesting in a lot of ways, defeated millions of names. But it doesn't say that. It says being convinced that self, one little whatever, defeated us, meaning the millions of names. Yeah? So being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, defeated us. Yeah? We will now look at not our manifestations of resentments and fears and harming other people in pursuit of what we want, but self's manifestations, which are resentments, fears, and harming other people in pursuit of what it wants. Yeah? We keep fucking convicting the wrong person because we're identified as self. So we're calling, and you don't think you are in the act of being identified? Then why are you calling the manifestations of self yours, unless you're in the act of being identified? And the fact is, you're not in the act of being identified, you're listening to the mental processes that are always in the act of being identified. That's true, that's what's happening. You don't have to know what happened and what's going to happen. It'd be fucking very wise to know what's happening right now. And see, your role in it. There would be... Acceptance isn't produced or acquired or procured. Yeah. It's an expression of mind. When mind rolls around in a certain way, then suddenly the atmosphere or the Buddha field is acceptance. It becomes inclusive. You see, hey, it's so fucking okay. I don't like it, or there's a reaction, but basically, you're giving everything that appears on the stage the honoring of fucking acknowledging it instead of going right into mental denial of it, which just lets it persist. Yeah? You don't want to be a fraud, you'll feel like 1,000th of freaking time. If it becomes okay to be a fraud, you won't be fucking, that boogeyman is out of the closet, yes? Yeah. So, being convinced of self. So when I saw it wasn't me, this is just a report, really. When I mean, clearly saw it as foreign, yeah? Completely. Then a possibility arose right then and there that hadn't seemed to be available with all my searching for the spiritual key, all my working, all my ass sitting and meditative walking and everything else, which is nothing right or wrong with it because you were there. All of that thing never led me to this key, and this was it. As soon as I saw it wasn't me, I can be free from it. And what happened is, it revealed that I had been trying to be free as it most of my life, since I was about 5 or 6. I've been trying to get out of self as a self. That was it. I mean, it was sort of like an instantaneous going over my life from about 5 on, not the particulars, but the why, the whole theme of it. And it was basically, I've been trying to get out of what I'm not as what I'm not. And the way to get out of what you're not is to see what you're not and realize you've never been in it. That's the only way that works. If you try to get out of self as self, yeah, you're in self. Then you take 2 years of studying how to get out of self, and it's an obsession with self. And you go to graduate work, and now you're 6 years to become a teacher of how to get out of self as a self. It's well-paying jobs, but in fact, it's not going anywhere. The way you get out is realize you're not in. That's what works. The experience of being out is never produced by escaping. It's by realizing you were never in it. Yeah, that's it. Then you have another logic appears. Let's call it fucking mind logic. And it's very clear. Like, you never get gypped ever again. You're always in every moment because you realize you can never be out of a moment. It's not that you became a master of how to get in. That only reinforces the belief that you could be out. That's the fucking insanity. You can't be out of a moment. So now you're not trying to get in the moment because you can't get out of the moment. And that works. Yeah? Now you never get gypped in your life because you realize, just like when you were a kid, I wasn't thinking, trying to get into the moment. Was I? No, because I hadn't entertained the insane idea I could be out of it. I wasn't going over my playing with my mother after I played with Wayne Griffith and see, do I need to go to playing lessons, or, you know, do you think I'm really playing, getting the most out of it? None of that. You just played, right? Played around. I played with like 3 years in a row with like 12 plastic army men with Wayne Griffith for about 4 to 6 under an old apple tree. My mother did, what are you doing out there? Same fucking thing, basically every day. But the imagination was running wild. Now the same thing's happening. Imagination's running wild, but it's directed by the fucking insane system of self. And now you're thinking of the worst fucking shit. Like, Jesus Christ, you're gonna be destitute or this and that. It's just like when you were 4, and then something was, you know, directing the imagination was fucking great. You know, now something else is taking hold. The self-centeredness is directing it, and look at what the fuck you get. You get shit in your pants, you're scared shit, and there's no fucking apparent threat other than the head. You're basically determined by what's not happening. How could what's not happening happen? How could next week have an effect unless what's happening entertains it? Yo, what's happening? I don't know how we keep missing it. You know, look at placebos. Doesn't that give you, what the hell? Someone has a pill for $500, and basically the same amount of success would be gotten by taking a sugar pill. A placebo does the exact same thing for some people as the $500 pill. What's that? But this fucking thing's dreaming. This is dreaming. You know what I mean? You're not the dreamt. You weren't thrown into a dream and a big thing's dreaming your fucking demise, and you're running around trying to get as much fun as possible. When a big foot comes out, smashes you for being bad. That's all about that. We're all, that's it. That's us. Not us as this. This is the dreamt. The Course in Miracles has one of the greatest diagnoses. You know, you can argue with it or not. I'm going to share it with you because I read it and it was sort of, it was like going through like 80,000 x-rays of humanoids, you know, like psychological x-rays. He says, all right, hey, you and I, not this, but you and I, as what we are mind, are dreaming the dreaming, yeah. Yeah. It's not like you did it or you're going to do it. You're in it. You're never not in it here. Yeah. You're dreaming the dreaming. Yeah. They would say you're the dreamer of the dream, but I don't. That gives it too much credit. You know, like there's a thing called the dream. It's dreaming. It's verbing, right? So you and I are the dreaming of the dreaming. We forget that we're dreaming. How the hell does that happen? It can't. It's impossible that the dreaming forgets its dreaming. But it can seem to be so to the dreaming. Yeah? So the dreaming can convince itself that it's not the dreaming. How does it do that? By being identified as the dreamt, the body. Yeah? So suddenly now the dreaming forgets that it's dreaming and takes itself to be the dreamt. Yeah? So now the mind, as dreaming, is identified as the dreamt. And so, okay, that would be fine, far out, the avatar. But this is what happens. Suddenly now, everything that I'm dreaming has the ability to affect me as the dreamt. I'm dreaming thoughts. The thoughts now can fucking drive me crazy. One thought can ruin your whole vacation, right? You're in Hawaii, you have a thought about Newark, New Jersey, and you know what I mean? Where does it get the power? How can the same thought entertained by you, me, have different effects if it's the same thought? If the thought was the source of its own power, it would have the same effect on all of us, but it doesn't. The power of the thought doesn't come from the thought, it comes from us, obviously. I mean, why not get to the exact nature of what's happening? I don't know, seems interesting to me. So you are the dreaming of the dreaming. Forget that. We're forgetting we're dreaming by being identified as a dream. And suddenly conditions and situations arise, which means I'm giving everything that I'm dreaming the power to affect me. Yeah? I'm dreaming the body. The fucking body has a huge power to affect us here. I watch people with illness and physical pain. It's very, very demanding of the attention and interest that keep going to that chronic condition. Yes? Where is that? Why is that so? Why is that so powerful? It's the identification as the body. So you have a thought that's driving you crazy. I can see it's driving you crazy. I feel for you. It's not driving me crazy. I could have the same thought that you're having, and it would have the ability to drive me crazy. When I see it as your thought, it has no ability to drive me crazy. But when it's taken as my thought, it has the ability to drive me crazy. Is it the thought? It's the mind. It's us. What's the mind? Who's playing the role of my problem? Who's playing the role of all the minds that precede a topic, like problem, body, future, time? And yet, as soon as you attach the mind to it, it changes the meaning of time, body, future, money. Yeah? Unbelievably. It can change unbelievably. So time, my time, is totally different. Body, oh, body, my body. I'm obsessed with it all fucking day. Yeah? Thoughts, my thoughts. Suddenly, no thought has driven anyone crazy. Tons of my thoughts have. Is that a foreign agent that's coming in there and with the like little pitchfork the mind? Or is it us in a diluted seemingly or an obscured seeming condition, not knowing the power that's being put to use here is being incinerated by our own magnifying glass in a sense. Yeah? I mean, we think miracle workers would be someone who raised someone from the dead, but we're making shit out of nothing all day. That's an incredible miracle. You know, I mean, the dead person had a history of being alive at one point, so you raise them up. But we're making shit out of next week. Like, unbelievable. It's Jesus Christ. But 2017 was the harbinger of terrible fucking forecast. Now we break through that fucking leak screen, and here we go again, 2018. You know, just like unbelievable. And we don't see our role in it. And then if you try to work on it, see, this is what happens. So you come here, you listen to this talk. Now, it matters what thinks and is hearing the talk. If the mitt of the mental condition catches this ball, the fucking talk gets neutered. Yeah, you may feel better, it may resonate, but it's not going anywhere. It isn't. I've seen it thousands of times. Yeah, the message is never to you. It's to what you are about you, not to you about what you are. That's the direction of satsang. It's about it's to what you are about you. It's to the Buddha about Steve, or to the Buddha about Brian, not to Brian about the Buddha, because that doesn't go anywhere. If the Buddha hears about Brian, and maybe, just maybe, it entertains something it already knows, which is, hey, I'm not that, that starts producing effects. You will start traveling lighter here. But if Brian hears the message about being the Buddha, it's just fucking nudism. Then maybe you'll go into Buddhism, and go on looking for the Buddha, and looking for the Buddha, and then you'll read an arcane, cryptic statement by a great Zen master saying you can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha, and you'll have no idea what the fucking message means, where it's as clear as day. The Huang Po, or that master, wasn't talking to Steve or Jim or Zhao Ping or whatever. He was talking to the Buddha, aka Zhao Ping and Steve and Mary. Yeah? With the hopes that the Buddha would hear the message, hey, Buddha, you can't use yourself to find yourself. Far out, there you go. Bing! How long would it take? It's not like an 18-hour operation. There's no cutting involved. You just went to the source and told the source, hey, that which you take yourself to be the source ain't. So the source withdraws the sourceness from the false frame, and the house collapses. Even though it stands, you're not living in it anymore. You move through it. You don't reside there. You have a new address. And now your mail starts coming comes to where you are. You start getting downloads that inform you, mostly almost like, always like reverse engineering. Just like if gravity, you know, people, they misblame shit for gravity's effects all day. They say that hill is really steep, or those staircases really fuck my legs, but it wasn't the staircase, it was gravity. Yeah? You were going against a force you didn't see, and you were pinning the fucking effects from the force on the wrong culprits. It wasn't the hill, it wasn't the stairs, it was gravity. And then you can study as much as you want about gravity, and maybe pass yourself on as a professor of gravity, but all one needs to know everything about gravity is to go into an anti-gravity chamber. As soon as you feel the absence of the effects, you'll know the fucking effects. And this is what happens with, you know the problem from the solution. The solution dawns and it informs you about the problem. It tells you all about what you're not. That's the information you need. You do not need any information about what you are. You need information about what you're not because you already are what you are. Knowledge is not going to lead you to being what you are. You already are it. Knowledge about what you're not will lead you to see you're not that, and then suddenly that huge journey to finally end to where you are is already available at all times, right where you are, with no requirement necessary. It becomes incredibly fucking available, to the point where it can never not be available. What is that going to do? I don't know. Let's find out. Maybe you'll bring an ease and comfort to your day. Maybe you'll be available. Maybe you'll sense a presence of your own presence, and then if you're available and you're sensing that presence, you're of service because you're available. You don't have, I gotta get available. Fucking, you are so freaking available right now. It's unbelievable. You can say, oh, I don't want to hear that person, but you heard that person. What? You heard everything. And then you got it, I'm going to try to be mindful and hold the space for that. You are holding the space for that. You're the consciousness that is appearing in. How much more can you hold the space? The mental state is just trying to mimic what we are. It is. It's trying to act. It's sort of like one of those finger puppets. Yeah? It's trying to mimic what we are with this weird fucking right angle fucking mental logic. This is, you know, I'm mindful. What else is mind but mindful? I'm gonna practice mindfulness. Fuck, you've been practicing it every second of every day. Just tune into it, not as what you're not, but as what you are. You'll see you're completely mindful. Why would you want to get a couple percentages of what you are 100%? Why do you want to go the slow route? I want to know what I am. I'm going to practice and purify what I'm not. Who's going to tell? You're going to take a shit after all the purification. I mean, you're not purifying the body. It's a fucking disposal unit. It's where energy gets transferred. It's not like, it's totally renewable, but it's not clean energy. There's a lot of fucking debris. I mean, it's fine if that's what you believe, but if you're here, maybe you're here, maybe as it says in the Course, we're in the act right now of the dreaming is going to use the dreaming to dream itself out of the dreaming. Maybe this meeting is that. Maybe this meeting is an example of that. We're all here, seemingly as separate individual entities, but we're not, obviously. Yeah? And so mind may be using this might to dream itself out of the dream. And as it does, the dream will get happier. Yeah? Not a bad deal. Yeah? The vanquishing of the dream, there's no need to vanquish it. Yeah. The head mind can use what it's dreaming to dream itself out of the dreaming. Beautiful. Yeah. What a beautiful statement. So satsangs, whatever it is, walks and the thing, Zen sword, it could be anything and everything. Because what's behind it all, what's in front of it all is mind. Big mind. Awareness, whatever you want to point with, yeah? But the best way to have a sense of it is know what you're not. Study, like I think Dogen, it's a longer statement, but the beginning of it is, a great Zen master from Japan says, you know, the study of Buddhism is the study of the self, and the study of the self is to forget the self. Why? Because if you study the self, you'll see it's not you, and you'll forget it. The only reason why you're remembering it, it's presented as you. Are you going to remember Stanley? Fucking, if you're not Stanley, of course not. You're not going to, you wouldn't spend, not one day in the rest of your life would be spent thinking about Stanley 20 years ago, if you're not Stanley. Really. The interest and attention isn't based on the life, it's based on it's your fucking life. It's your memories, it's your thoughts, it's your feelings. Without the claiming of the activity of life, there would be no projection of you. Yeah? So you see it, thoughts. All right, thoughts. A lot of people think their thoughts are driving them crazy. How can you expect to get real relief if you misdiagnose the situation all the time? All right, I've got to stop having thoughts. I can only have good thoughts. And these are bad thoughts. Why not see, maybe you're not the thinker of the thoughts. They may not be yours. You know? This happened to me in recovery, mind-boggling. Sat there first months with an incredible thick shell of terminal uniqueness. I thought no one felt like I did. No one had done the heinous things I had done. No one thought like I did. And so, really a quite isolating place. And then I listened to people for months share their feelings, their thoughts, their reactions to life. And I could come up to only two conclusions, which is, how did these people get my thoughts, or they're not my thoughts? How could they be my thoughts if you're having them? The mind has a sense of ownership, yes? Has a sense of, I have a lot to do what comes after the mind, but I don't have any fucking thing to do with what comes after a lot of the minds, yeah? So what happens? You see, you don't try to manicure this fucking thought system that's gone to seed. You go to the root of it. Where is all the meaning being given to all the thoughts? Not the thoughts are not bringing you the meaning. The thoughts are being injected with meaning. They're coming from the mind. You're in the act of being identified as the thoughts seem to have a huge amount of sway over that which is identified as the thinker. Go there. Why waste tons of time chasing after thousands of thoughts? See who is it or what is it that has them. If it's not you, suddenly the thoughts don't have the wallop, the fucking body punches they used to have. They'll bring out the guns, I'll tell you. They will. You know, you're never going to be loved or some other fucking thing. But hey, now you go a lot around with it. It's not like a quick 1, 2, 3, you're out. You fucking can spar with the motherfuckers, yeah? And because you're rooted not in thought, you're before thoughts. What is that which sees thoughts or hears thoughts? We say it in recovery, you got to get down to the exact nature of the wrong. You've got to get the causes and conditions. Maybe we're getting down to a wrong, but it's not the exact nature of it. Maybe we're mistaking causes and conditions. And maybe that's why the real radical relief isn't already or always available, because we've misdiagnosed. Self is still totally engaged in the recovery process. We're not looking at the fucking disease, we're looking from the disease. There's a huge difference. And if you don't see it, you'll be looking from it. If you don't see the heist, you'll be looking from the heist. And then you'll think, and you'll be so paranoid of having any heist happen in your life. You'll be looking for everyone who's trying to take advantage of you. You've been already co-opted completely. You're just mimicking what's already in place. You're afraid someone's going to take advantage of you because you've been taken advantage of. You're living an interpretation. You're not even close to the fucking pulse of living. To me, it's slavery, complete slavery. We don't know any better. We just assume this is the way things are. I was watching this weird documentary that's on Netflix about Osho, Rajneesh, yeah? Very interesting when they were building this giant ranch. It's not the point. But then when they would interview the people who flipped out, the people who lived in this little town, about 3 of them said, I'm afraid of what I don't know. That was a fucking common thing. I'm afraid, and then they were fucking bringing out the pitchforks and going totally fucking Rambo on the Rajneeshi people because they were afraid of what they don't know. You could look at it one way. In the state of not knowing, it's the petri dish for fear. If you would know, right, then the fear wouldn't have a place to grow. But in the not knowing of your own nature, because you can't know it, but the not being of your own nature, that not being is the petri dish of all the fear and the anxiety. It just morphs into so many different mutated things. You think you got over that one worry, and then it just pops up a whole other fucking worry. Yeah? It's like you get all the therapy you need to get over your family of origin on the earth, then you start thinking about the family of origin on Mars. You know, the mind can just go on, cultivating imaginary fucking problems. It's never ending. It's like addiction. If we had correctly identified the problem, if it was lack of cocaine in my life, I would have solved the problem. I shot up tons of fucking cocaine. If it was that, if I was missing cocaine, if that was the reason my life wasn't good, I would have completed the mission. But it was totally misdirected. It had nothing to do with cocaine. It had to do with the original addiction. The mental state is addicted to the idea of being a self. That's its drug. And then everything else we do to get relief from there becomes an addiction that's not satisfying because it's not hitting the target. The self mutates to the next thing, and now you're the cocaine addict. There's an identification as that, or the alcoholic, or the sex addict, or this and that. The selfing keeps fucking migrating, and nobody, all the herds that they get taken over by it never fucking notice. It migrates into the temples, it migrates into the religions, it migrates into everything. Whatever it comes in contact with, it will claim and present a story that you're the one that's doing that great service for people, or you're doing that, or you're this or that. I was listening to these people from this documentary, totally claiming all these experiences as if they had them, or that if they had enlightenment, and that enlightenment is something that moves through. It's like a note that can be played by some flutes here, but the flute isn't the producer of the note. Without that wind blowing through the flute, there would be no note. But the flute, being in self-centeredness, immediately thinks, I'm that which is moving through me. I'm the one who's enlightened. It's just a mistake on a mistake on a mistake on a mistake on a mistake. And then the mistake tries to correct the mistake, which is the mistake. And then it's the same thing in AA, says, hey, you gotta quit playing God. Okay, I hear that. But what's hearing it is that which is playing God. And so now the selfing goes, oh, I gotta quit playing God. So now, while playing God, it tries to quit playing God. Isn't that playing God? Ad nauseum. You can't get in front of it, and you can't correct it from after it. Yeah, the self can't get out of self. You see you're not that, and there's no drive to get out, and that's being out. And the escape, the trail of the escape is acceptance, basically. That's the footprints that are left. There's no running out of the situation. There's an acceptance of it because it's seen as not being fucking so. The event is, but you aren't. The initial event that has all the events is not an event. It's an activity. What's not happening suddenly does not get enlivened by what's happening. You're not affected by next week because it's next week. It's not leaking in today. Yeah? Any 2-year-old can see that. If you as a kid would come up to you now and see you totally flipped out about next week, they'd be like, what? What? Because they're not the influence of time yet. The mental state hasn't developed its little storyline to capture the attention and interest enough. So you're basically inherently free without fucking knowing it when you're a kid and if you're not in an abusive situation. Our wanting to be free is used to reinforce the fucking enslavement. Don't you see it? Doesn't mean stop wanting to be free, but see the heist. See there's something that's happening while you think you're doing shit. There's an overlay that's writing a story quicker than you doing anything, that as soon as it claims the doing, it uses it to imply you're the doer. So doing can't get out of doer. Obviously, thinking can't get out of thinker. Feeling can't get out of feeler. Obviously. So you stop fucking, you know, a rat, they do studies with rats, you know, they put the cheese down one of the little hallways, and then they remove the cheese. The rat goes down maybe 2 or 3 times, but then figures it out. We keep going for fucking 70 years. There was once, I heard someone say in this old book, there was Jesus fucking on and on and on and on. And what happens is there's all these little kiosks all down the thing that are selling shit as you proceed down there. And all you get at the end is a big filet mirror. There you are. I've experienced my own absence. No, you haven't. You were there to write the fucking story once again. Whatever, you know. I love this invitation because I'm a slacker at heart, and there's nothing you need to fucking do, except maybe go to dinner tonight and get some fries, and buy me dinner because it's my 30th anniversary of recovery. 30 years. And you know what? Ever since 30 years ago, I've never had a strong thought or a feeling of getting loaded. That's a damn fucking good solution for something that totally dominated my life since I've been 6 years old to about 36. That's incredible. Would I just keep it locked in that little box, or let it expand and tell me a lot more about what demonstrated? Why would I want to put a period on it? You know, just stay open. That's what I feel like for me. I want a higher power of its own understanding. I don't want a higher power of my understanding. I'm gonna fucking severely put a crimp on it. Yeah, let it be revelatory. Yeah. Taking the sound of the water, you can hear the rain hitting this tune. You can lose yourself right there. Follow sound. Sound's the easiest because sound doesn't, you're like in water with sound, yeah? You don't know where it's coming from, really, and you don't know where it's being heard from. If you close your eyes, why not just see that? That's a free sample, easily had, you know? Just follow a sound back. To me, the closest sound is a vibratory sound that I always hear. It's not hearing it with the ear, it's just vibrating. And it has different frequencies. And it's happening when it's super loud out, doesn't matter, it's always happening, yeah? And so I've traced it back. I haven't, but I've traced it back. And it's before any other sound I've ever heard. Like the sound of the breath, it's before that. The sound of the heart beatings before that, right? The sound of the blood going through the veins, blood pumping, is before that. Every other sound I've ever heard has been located out there, yeah? And it's the most constant sound they ever heard. It's always available at all times. But what is that which is hearing it? You've cut everything down to one event. Something is quote unquote hearing the sound. Yeah? What is that? How could it not be you? Everything comes after that. Everything is given meaning from that. Everything is touched and brought into seeming existence from that. How could we not know that's us? Because we are it, that's why. We don't need to waste time trying to know it. We're in the act of being it right now. Have you worked hard seeing today? Have you been sweating? Could you imagine, if this was something you did, you would have won 50 gold medals. If you're the first person to see ever, you know? If you could demonstrate consciousness that we take so fucking for granted, it would be fucking mind-boggling in the annals of the universe. Mind-boggling. We just fucking, oh yeah. All our attention lies in the narration of the seeing, and to see or seeing. We miss the whole sense. Yet that which really is the basis of our life, we have no volition over. If your eyes are open and your head's pointing in a certain direction, you're going to see whatever's there. Yeah? I mean, you may hear tons of sounds you didn't want to hear today. Because if your ears are open, they have a radius and they're going to hear whatever's there. Are you sweating to hear? Are you breaking out in this, you know, like when you have spices breaking out of the eyebrows? Ooh, it's tough seeing today. No. It has no thought effort on your part. Why would you believe thought and effort's going to bring you there? Where is that day you have to be brought to? Isn't it here? Right now? See what you're not. See what you're not. And you'll find out what you are. Because it's already so. It's being right now. You'll just be let in on the act. You'll be let in on it, so to speak. Yeah. And so you'll be awake to being awake. It's not something that happened. Everyone here is awake. We can seem like we are, or we can seem like we're not. And don't fucking pin it on the body. The Toyota's a Toyota with the Buddha driving it or with fucking Hitler driving it. It's a Toyota. Yeah? Don't expect the body to be all perfect and everything like that, because it's not meant to be. It's the dreaming, it's the objective dreaming of the place. It's meant to have blind spots. That's what makes it spicy here. So, yeah. We won't be here next Wednesday. I think we're going to be gone till April 7th. I can't figure it out right now. But we're leaving Monday, and we'll be back April 7th.
Where are you going?
We're going up to Seattle, Vancouver Island, Seattle, Portland. Do some talks. Come back. Yes. Yeah, we're going to drive up there. And that's that. Any questions?
Statements?
Huh?
Statements? I just like the, you listening for the sound before the sound just made me think of the next time I hear my heart beating in my ear and it's bothering me, then maybe I could try to just check that out as if it's a curious thing.
Oh yeah, check it out, for sure. That contact is always going on at all times until we go into the deep sleep. And then it's just rest, I imagine. And you know, it's amazing being such important movers and shakers that we're off the game board 1/3 of the time. You know, we're all asleep every night. You would think if we were an integral part that we'd be up all day, but we're sleeping away 1/3 of the time. You gotta question all the assumptions. Yeah, at least a little bit. Because this whole selfing runs on assumption, insinuation, implied. It is. It's all hearsay. It's all it is. Constantly. It's constantly. Watch the mind. The mind's very interesting. Watch the word mind in English. It's really, you'll get to see, it's like the footprint of selfing here. Yeah? So if you go into this crime scene Yeah, you'll see my around when there's a lot of resentments and fucking acting out, there'll be my in that topic, you know. Why not put the, you know, you're awake, as Buddha supposedly said when he's passed away, hey, be a light unto yourself. Obviously, he didn't say, hey, you better get a light. He said, be a light, meaning, obviously implying you are the light, yes? If you weren't the light, you'd have to get a light, yes? But be a light unto yourself. Why? Because you are a light. Yeah.
So, it seems like, is this true, that as soon as I say I,
Oh, the battery.
as soon as I say I, I'm already separated from is.
No, you're not. You just think
Like,
you are.
I mean, the is-ing, like you're verbing, the is-ing, but as soon as I say, oh, I have these thoughts, I have these feelings, oh, I have to think about my future, I'm already captured in self.
No, you're not.
In the height.
But you're not. That activity is an appearance of what you are. It doesn't have the horsepower to ever get out of what it is. Yeah? What it is believes it uses that statement to imply something has happened that could never happen. That's all. You're gonna see selfing, and then there'll be an assumption that you're seeing you. You're not seeing you. You're seeing what you're not. Yeah. See, this is what happens. This is the basic 101 flaw around it. F-L-A-W. Not F-L-O. I gotta explain myself. Or poor, P-A-W, not, whatever. So, people would hear this message, then they usually call me or get in touch with me and say, hey, Paul, I really like your message. I've been selfing all day. And I would say, no, that's not the message. The message is that feeling of being the one who's selfing all day is the message. Yeah? You're not that feeling of being the one. Yeah? And then other people say, all right, selfing's been driving me crazy all day. I said, no. That's the selfing, that's like a misdirection. The feeling of being the one driven crazy is the selfing. You see? All the narration is being used to imply there's someone to be narrated about. That's all. You catch it. You catch it. In this case, the emperor, the true view of the emperor is that he has no clothes. There is no emperor. That's what you find. Yeah. When you strip it down, you don't go, I did it. No, you see that it's like the onion. There's no middle. There's no center in an onion. It's just fucking layers. There's nothing there. Yeah. So no, you do not have the ability to separate yourself from what you are. You cannot fuck it up. You can. You can only seem to fuck it up. Yeah. So let's say it's just like you don't mind? We'll go off on something for 5 minutes. Yeah? All right, fine. The prodigal son story in the Bible, the New Testament, where the guy, he leaves his situation, yeah, and he starts acting out, and he fucks women and gets loaded, and then he starts moving towards a bottom, and he thinks about getting in touch with his father, but he's too guilty for what he's done, and shame like that. So he finds himself in a pigsty, fighting the pigs to get some cob of corn, yeah, and he has this idea, he just surrenders, right? He gives up, and then suddenly he awakes, and there's his father on the road with a new robe and a ring, and hugs him and puts the ring on him, says, hey, we got a big feast waiting for you, come on. Now the prodigal son, it wasn't the father that was was withholding itself. It was him. The prodigal son believed, right, he could separate himself from the father, and these heinous things he did exiled him from the father until he would do enough penance so where he'd finally admit it, and maybe he'd be in good graces. But all he needed to do was give up the fucking story, and there was the father, and there went the feast. So the 30 years, it's just like that knocking on heaven's door, you know? God answers, and you go, hey, can I come in? And God says, Paul can't come in, so you leave. But he's just making a statement. Paul, Jim, Mary can't come in. If you didn't take yourself to be Paul, there would be no exile from heaven. You would have walked right in. It's not, it's us. Yeah. You believe you've done something sufficient enough to separate yourself from what is, and therefore what is has to convince itself in the dreaming to realize it could never fucking ever have done that. And in Bammo, this is what happened with me. One of the downloads, it hit me, and when it hit me, it told me that it has always been this way. So therefore, in that one download, it negated all relevance and reality that I had given everything else of being able to distance me from that or this and that. It just, like, and it was like 800 chalkboards erased in no time because nothing was ever really there. That's what it was like. That's what was shown. Boom! It's always been this way. Now suddenly this kicks in, da-da-da. But in fact, that's never been, it's in there, yes? Yeah. Don't take yourself so seriously. It doesn't have the power you're giving it. It doesn't. It's your power being misdirected. Yeah. So, hey, well, let's pass the basket. So I want to have a think in it.